Hello out there. Welcome to your next mission video podcast. Transition from the military is hard. Many service members struggle with the process, and that's why we talk about it so frequently on the show. Onward Ops is a nonprofit organization that is changing a lot of lives by taking a little different approach to helping our service members transition. Today, you'll hear from an executive director and a board member about the program that they're doing. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Your Next Mission video podcast, where we tell the stories of those who have served in the past and those who are serving today. From transition to financial wellness, VA benefits to mental health, we cover issues facing veterans, active military, and their families. Now here's your host, the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army and co-founder of the American Freedom Foundation, Jack L. Tilley.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks to all of our veterans and service members and families for your service to our great country. Now, before we get started, I personally want to thank our presenting sponsors, Navy Federal Credit Union, whose members are the mission, and Purdue Global, where you can start your comeback, and USAA, whose mission is taking care of the military community and their families always, with additional sponsorship from Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Dental and Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Vision. Together, they make your next mission happen. They love our veterans and families, and if you ever listen to the show, I always say this, we love them too. Today, we're going to talk about transition from a little different point of view that is helping make the process smoother for our service members. And I'm excited to welcome Mike Eastman, Executive Director of Onward Ops, a Brigadier General, United States Army, retired, HUA, and Howie Cohen, Principal, Howie Cohen Associates, Board Member, Onward Ops, and a colonel, a retired colonel in the United States Army. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Sergeant Major.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. Excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have two Army guys on here. I'm all pumped up here. We got first parts going on. I'm excited to hear what you guys are doing about transition, but there's always a but and everything. Before we do that, would each one of you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself? And General, we'll start with you.
No, absolutely. So I was born in Oklahoma, son of an Army dad and an Army grandfather. Spent 30 years in the military. Along the way, got married to my lovely wife, who happens to be a Navy vet herself, father of 3 kids, and now hanging out here in Northern Virginia, trying to do some good work, helping our veterans and continuing to serve.
Well, usually what I say when somebody says 30 years, because I stayed 36, I always come back and say quitter, but I'm not going to say that. Hey, Colonel, how about yourself, sir? How about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Sergeant Major. Unlike General Eastman, I only did 27.5 years, but I don't consider myself a quitter, Sergeant Major.
Okay, I take it back.
No, and I did about, after I got out of the Army, did about 8 years in government contracting, did 4 years in leadership and management consulting, and then I went into my next transition, and that's where I actually met General Eastman and got introduced to the Onward Ops program, and that was about almost 5 years ago, actually almost 6 years ago now.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. I know you're doing it a lot all the time, trying to change the lives of a lot of our veterans and families, so I certainly appreciate it. General, what was behind the motivation of you starting Onward Ops? I mean, what motivated you to start this program?
Sergeant Major, I can't take credit for starting it. This organization's about 8 years old, and it started in New York City, grew out of a relatively small program. But the motivation behind it is actually a pretty simple one. Transition is really hard. And at the core of it, we lose too many of our newest veterans in that first year after they take off the uniform. So that's what drives us. It's obviously our mission is to make 100% of our newest veterans successful. But along the way, there's a couple percentage that really struggle, whether it's with unemployment or homelessness or what have you. And we believe as an organization, there's a gap there, and we're trying to fill it.
Yeah. A lot of times, and I've talked to a lot of people on the show, they really people that get out are trying to find their tribe, where they fit in. And that's why I always go back and say that's why there's so many homeless. That's why there's so many people that take their life by suicide, because they struggle with where do they fit in? Who do they talk to? And I know you got a great program because you guys are involved. How do you find the mentors to work with your program? Is there a selected process, or how do you pick your mentors?
So our mentors come from a pretty broad spectrum. Howie is one, right? So far be it for me to
Got to talk good about them.
I'll tell you broadly speaking, and then I'll pass it over. Broadly speaking, we're just looking for good-hearted Americans that want to give back to those that served in uniform. About 70% of our mentors are veterans themselves. 30% have not worn the uniform one day in their life. But 100% of them want to do more than writing a check or putting a bumper sticker on a car, when you can link up with someone making this journey that, as you said, is feeling a little bit lost, and walk that with them until they're set up for success.
Yeah, well, they want to talk to somebody that's walked in the same boots that they've walked in. That they understand the struggles they're going through. So, do you want to add anything to that? I should always.
No, Sergeant Major, I think you hit on something really important with your questions to General Eastman, and based on some suicide research is actually conducted by the Department of Veteran Affairs, and there's a certain part of that department that Onward Ops is very closely linked to. They identify three things that someone loses when they come out of their uniform, and one is their sense of identity, their sense of purpose, and the second is their sense of purpose, and the third is their community, which you identified. And that's what we hope to address, what General Eastman and the program hopes to address in the Onward Ops program, is how do you help someone transition less stressfully, more successfully into whatever is the next stage of their life, and then find and replace that sense of identity, purpose, and community that they lost when they took the uniform off.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that really attracted me to the program.
Yeah, well, one of the things I've been telling anybody that comes on the show and talk to the people, I do talk in the military still, I said that we need to start that process a lot earlier. We need to talk about it in our educational program for officers and non-commissioned officers, and talk about people about what the stresses are going to be. The other thing I always talk about, we should talk about the effects of war. And when you come out of war, how you're going to, some of the things that are going to occur to you as an individual when you come out of war, and some of the things that's confusing for you. I know when I came out of, it's a lot of years ago, came out of Vietnam, for about 3 or 4 or 5 years, I really struggled with, I had anger issues, and I had really a lot of problems, and I really didn't know what the problem was, but I just kept talking and working through it, and I sort of worked through it myself. So that helped me a great deal. So anyway, in the past, we got to do all we can to help our veteran community. There's no question. Hey, Colonel, on our prep call, that Onward Ops, you talked about transformational stuff on the call. Could you explain to me exactly what do you mean about transformational?
Yeah, well, look, when I transitioned into my final job that led me to an introduction to the Onward Ops program, I started doing a lot of research and connection on LinkedIn, and which then led me to a lot of veteran service organizations that in some form or another were trying to help alleviate the stress of a transition process. And some of them do it well. Many of them don't do it well. But when I got introduced to General Eastman and Bill Buck, who helped kind of bring the program to fruition, I saw things in this program I didn't see in other programs. And that's what I meant by transformational. For the idea of having a sponsor, or a mentor, if you want to call it that, whether in uniform or out, is very unique in many cases in the transition program. And one who stays with you, as General Eastman mentioned, that 12-month period from when you take the uniform off and start into the transition process, based on the research, again, the veteran suicide research that the program is built on, they've actually labeled that the deadly gap. The likelihood of a veteran or even a family member of committing suicide can increase 2, 3, 4, even up to 5 times in that 12-month period, where they actually labeled the deadly gap. So having someone, the other thing that I think is really significant is if I, as a transitioning veteran, enter into the program, I go through an intake process where I answer certain questions. the program database or the system captures information about me. And if I elect to have a sponsor assigned to me, one of the things they identify, or several of the things they identify, is when I get out, my ETS date, my expiration of term of service date, and where I'm going, my community of choice that I want to join. And the way the program is designed to work is if we have sponsors for example, I live in Prince William County, Virginia. So if I elect to have a sponsor assigned to me, that they'll reach into the database, find trained and certified sponsors who live in Prince William County or nearby that then can help me integrate into the community that I choose to join. Just like we had the sponsorship program in the military. So you've seen it in many units. We want to help integrate someone PCSing, joining our unit, joining our military installation. We want to ease the stress of that integration into that new community. The same thing with someone getting out. I did not see anything like that in the number of VSOs that I studied and researched, and that's why I call it transformation. You literally have someone holding your hand from the time, from hopefully 1 year out to before you get out of the military to when you actually move to that new community, and they help you. They're a conduit to help you find a place to live, find good school systems for your kids, help you find a job. Maybe it's help your spouse find employment. Understand where all the different medical facilities that you can leverage. Those are the kinds of things I didn't see in other kind of transition focused veteran service organization. That's what I mean by transformation.
Well, the other thing I was saying as you're talking, I had about 2 or 3 sponsors or coaches or mentors when I got out of the service. I don't know about you, General. I don't know, how many did you have? Did you have a couple of coaches or some of the mentors when you was getting out of service that you sort of bounced ideas off? And then the other thing is really critical too for us is how is that family involved in that entire process? So I don't know, Jim, you want to say anything about that, whether or not to?
Yeah, no, I will. I would just say this. What we do, there's no rocket science in it, fortunately. I'm not smart enough to build a rocket.
Yeah.
These are pretty straightforward things that we're trying to do. But the process as it exists today, sure, it gives you good information about federal programs, and it gives you good information about how do you file a disability. Right? All those things exist. We can debate whether or not we start them early enough to take full advantage of them. But what happened to me, and I think happens to all of us, is I was going through this process and I would sit in these classes and my wife would attend, and then we would come home and she would say to me, hey Mike, you're moving our family to this town. What part of town should we live in? And I could not answer that question. And then she would say, you got 3 kids. Which schools should we send them to? And I couldn't answer that either. And after about the 5th time she asked me what was really a pretty straightforward question that I should have known, I recognized that even in the best of circumstances, federal programs don't have local information. And if you can get a sponsor or a mentor in that community to answer those questions, you're taking a level of real life pressure off of the new veteran that, for better or for worse, they're going to deal with. And so, let's help them through those things that are answerable if you find the right connection.
Yeah. One of the things is that I asked the Chief of Staff of the Army this not too long ago. I said, hey, look, why don't you use the veteran community a little bit more? Why isn't there more there's a lot of people like us that are more than willing to help veterans get out of the service. And so why don't you reach out to us? And they said, well, I guess it was a couple of years ago. This says, we're trying to do all we can, but there's never been a really good connection between the active duty and our veteran community, and we need to do a better job at that. I don't know if we ever will, but I know there's a lot of people out there don't want anything, don't want any money or anything. They just want to try to help their brothers and sisters get out of the service. Hey, this is a great discussion. We need to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about what you call the underserved. So stay right there. I know you're not going to go anywhere because you're good soldiers. I'll be right back. This is Your Next Mission Video Podcast with me, your host, Jack L. Tilley, 12th Sergeant Major of the Army. And if you're enjoying this discussion, and I know that you are because we're talking about us, we're talking about our family, we're talking about our brothers and sisters that struggle when they get out of the service. Please like us. Click on that subscribe button below. And be sure to click on the bell to receive notifications of all of our upcoming video podcast releases. I'll be right back after a word from my presenting sponsors.
You're watching Your Next Mission video podcast, proudly presented by Navy Federal Credit Union, the most trusted credit union owned by members of the military community, serving all branches of the armed forces and their families. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Their members are the mission. Purdue Global. You're ready for a comeback, and with Purdue Global, you can do more than take classes. You can take charge of your story, of your career, of your life. Earn a degree you can be proud of and get an education employers respect. Start your comeback at purdueglobal.edu. And USAA.
A promise is a trust not to be broken, whether spoken with an oath
Solemnly swear.
or sealed with a pinky. And after 100 years, we're still taking care of the military community and their families. That's our mission, always.
Now back to your host, the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army, Jack L. Tilley.
Welcome back. We're blessed to be talking with Mike Eastman, Executive Director of Onward Ops and Brigadier General of the United States Army retired, and Howie Cohen, Principal of Howie Cohen and Associates, Board Member of Onward Ops, and a Colonel, United States Army retired. Before we get back to our discussion, I want to let you know about a way to support the work we're doing on behalf of veterans and their families here at the American Freedom Foundation. If you have a used vehicle you're planning to get rid of, or a property that you don't have any plans for, you can donate it. Visit our website at americanfreedomfoundation.org/donate and click on that vehicle donation button or that home donation button to support our work. We really would appreciate your support. General, you said that your focus on Onward Ops is taking care of the great underserved. What did you mean by that?
Sergeant Major, when you look at who gets out of the military in any given year, the data will drive you to about 80% of the folks that take off the uniform served 1 to 2 terms. Our average enrollee is 27 years old. Half of them are married. They got a year or 2 of college. Most do not have a completed degree. And when you look at that and then you compare it to the programs that exist in this space, you come very quickly to it. There's a gap. If you're a higher ranking service member, if you are heading to business school, there are great organizations out there that will get you linked up to a C-suite mentor or help you along that pathway to getting an MBA or what have you. I found that if you are an E4 infantryman, there are not the same opportunities for you. And so we're trying to create and craft our program around where is the greatest need, which aligns with where is the greatest population. These are generally young men and women that join the military out of high school, served their country for 4, 6, 8 years, and they're now launching themselves onto adult life as a relatively young person that doesn't necessarily have the academic credentials, the established network. They've not done resumes for 10 years. They're starting in a very different place. And we want to meet them where they are. There are plenty of organizations that will meet you. They certainly met me, right? 30 years, got my degrees. We're here to help you get linked up to these great jobs. But if my son got out at 4 years, I don't think those same opportunities would be there. I don't think he would be aggressively pursued because he doesn't fit sort of the individual they're necessarily looking for. That's where we try and fit in.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you ever break into service by any chance? Or did you say it's a straight 30 years? No breaks?
I went straight. I was one-trick pony.
Well, I wasn't smart enough. What I did is I stayed 3 years and 30 days and got out of the service. And what you just said was exactly right. I got out, thought everything was going to be good. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I struggled a little bit, found some jobs. And I really never, again, going back, I really never fit in. And it was a struggle for me. So after about 2 years doing that, I said, that's enough. I went back into the service. I couldn't take it anymore. So it was tough. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. And it's really funny. We don't talk about that very much. We always talk about retirees and people spend a little bit more time than the senior people. But you have any idea what the percentage of that is that stay that period of time? It's a pretty high percentage of people that just stay 1 tour, isn't it?
It's north of 80%.
Is it really? Oh, wow. Yeah, that's pretty. Woo. Hey, Colonel, do spouses get involved or families get involved with the process of your work?
Well, I mean, there's an opportunity for them. I think it really depends on if I think if the transitioning service member brings their spouse into the process. I know that's a big problem throughout all services that I don't know if they intentionally exclude their spouse, but they just don't actively bring them into the process. I think there's every opportunity for a spouse to participate in this process, and I think they need to participate in the process. I think a lot will depend. I would hope that the sponsors will, through training that we give them, will open up that idea for their transitioning service member that, hey, it's just not you transitioning; it's your entire family transitioning. And how about we bring your spouse into the conversation? I think that's a great thing that a sponsor can choose to do, and then maybe open up that door for the transitioning service member.
Yeah, I've been married a long time. I've been married 55 years, and I know you guys would never lie to me, but in my house, I am not the general. I'm the private.
Well, I think that's true for all of us, are maybe.
I remember, I got to tell you a quick story. I remember when I got out of the service and I told my wife, I said, baby, I'm going to do all I can to, I've been gone for 36 years, always traveling, doing all this stuff. And so we built a house, we moved all our furniture into the house, we're getting all squared away. And then I think we just had put the furniture in the house, maybe a day or so after that. She looked at me, she says, don't you have something to do? That you go somewhere. So get out of there. But it was fun. But spouses are so critical to our process. And they're a big part of that process. And so having them involved in the process is critical. Because, they really, I said it yesterday on the show we was doing, the NCO Corps, I always say the NCO Corps is the backbone of the Army. You always say that. Well, the spouses are the backbone that pushes the NCO Corps up there. And the officer corps. So we got to make sure we do. General, what is one thing? I'm sure there's a lot of things there that sets Outward Ops, off to the side a little bit, or makes it different than all the other organizations.
No, Sergeant Major, I appreciate that. There are a lot of things I'd like to say make us different. I won't say better, but for sure different. I think the one that I would highlight we're going on our 4th year now of a partnership with the VA. And one of the things we do is when folks enroll with us, we facilitate their enrollment into VA healthcare. And because we have been very successful at that, we're north of 80% of anyone that walks through our door gets enrolled in VA healthcare before they leave the military. That process is in place. When if you look nationally, we're well below 50% of folks that do that on their own. But if you look at the picture, having access to VA healthcare, whether you use it or not, that's on you. But at least having it as a fallback is a protective factor against bad things happening that you hadn't contemplated. We get them in the door, we help them with their enrollment, and then through a phenomenal partnership we have with the VA, we can get them their first primary care appointment within 14 days. Most folks don't recognize that sending your form in is not mission complete. You're not in the VA because you sent a form in. You're in the VA when you've had your first primary care appointment, and then your file goes forward to the VA Medical Center where you live. Nationally, not only are we pretty much doubling enrollment numbers, but if you tried to do this on your own, the situation being what it is, it takes an average of 7 to 8 weeks just to get that first appointment. And why do we care? Because if you're leaving the military and you're on prescription medications, and you're waiting 8 weeks before you ever see a doctor, odds are you're going to run out. And we don't like that. So we have created a situation now where we can move them very quickly to the end state and set them up for success rather than, let's deal with the crisis and let's go to the emergency room and these other things that we don't really want to talk about.
Yeah. One of the things, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, I would say that probably a big percentage of the people getting out of the service don't know anything about their benefits and entitlements either. I've talked to a lot of people about that. And once you get out of the service, then you start learning that. Going back to the spouses now, spouses know more about benefits and entitlements than we do on active duty because they're concerned about that information there. But you know what? Well, I want to shift a little bit our attention to Military Transition Assistance Program. Also we all know it as TAPS. Do you feel that the structure the Army has put in place through TAPS helps produce a smooth transition for our service members, for our veterans there?
I think TAP is well intended, but it is insufficient. And I work with TAP managers across the country as we try and partner with them. There's a structural problem here in that TAP is a lot of information delivered in a very short period of time. It's hard to absorb it. And if we view TAP, as we have in the past, as kind of the boot camp for transition, we ought not be surprised that it isn't enough. I don't care what you're trying to learn. I didn't learn how to drive a car in 5 days. I'm not going to learn how to manage the rest of my life in 5 days when I'm handed a body of information. So I think it's important to start earlier, give them the information in enough time where they can absorb it and make use of it, and then look at TAP as complementary. A perfect world for our organization is they start with us a year out, and when they hit that TAP class at the 6-month window or whenever it comes, TAP is validating. Your resume looks good. You've applied for health care. You understand your benefits. You are good to go. As opposed to, this is the first time you're hearing about it. And then for many service members, I'm scrambling because now I got to file a disability and the clock is running and I don't even have my medical records. Things like that we all hear about. They're avoidable if we approach this the right way.
Yeah. One of the things that when I got out of the service initially, I got a contract with the VA, and we really would go in and inspect the TAPS process. And so I started really digging at it a little bit. One of the things I've figured out is, and I've talked about on the show too, is that you shouldn't go to TAPS just one time. You should go a couple times if you're able. You should also take your spouse with you when you go to TAPS. It's really critical for that. And because people, and then the other thing you find out is we say, I don't think it's changed, about 2 years out, you should start that process. But most people start it, 6 months, 180 days, and they sort of jam themselves through it. So when they go through that, they don't figure anything out. And for a general or for a senior officer, I went to the TAPS program when I was Sergeant Major of the Army. Went right over to Fort Myer. I was sitting down in class. At the time now, there's a bunch of E4s and majors and colonels, and not colonels, but lieutenants and stuff in there. And I sit there for 1 hour and listen and realize they're not going to be able to help me. Got up, went back over to the Pentagon, called Fort Myer, said, "Hey, send the guys giving the class over to my office, will you please?" So they did, and he came to my office. Now I had that, that cloud. I guess I could pull him out of it a little bit, and they explained to me what I needed to do. But I was lucky. So I think, we need to take a hard look, and commanders on the ground need to push people to go to TAPS a lot sooner and make sure they go through that process. So, that was I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's what I think we probably ought to take a good look. Colonel, you want to add anything to the TAPS and that question?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Sergeant Major. I had the benefit, even though I was in command as an 06, to start, and I started planning my transition 2 years out. And part of the reason was, and this was based on advice I had gotten from mentors of mine who were helping me through the transition planning process, was, look, one, you got to go to TAPS. I mean, it was mandatory to go, but two, there are things that are going to come up over a period of time where you may not be able to make that certain workshop or that certain class that you're signed up for. And if you start planning early enough out, then you could reschedule that. Or maybe you took one that you thought was really beneficial and maybe you wanted to retake it. So I gave myself enough cushion here that if something operationally came up, that I could then take that course. But getting back to General Eastman's earlier comments, when you're a young enlisted person or even a young officer, you don't have the ability to control your time and your schedule like I did as a colonel, right? and as you did as a sergeant major of the Army. And that's where the real problem is. So either the command is not allowing them or freeing them up to attend the TAP class in enough time where it could be helpful, or they're not taking the time to do it, and then they, like you said, kind of stuff a lot of things in. But you got to do your exit physical. There's so many things you need to do in those last 6 months, and most of them aren't even starting 6 months out. They're probably starting 3 months out. Maybe they're doing it 3 weeks out. And at that point, unknowingly you've added so much stress to the process. I think if they would start at least a year out, preferably if you know you're getting out at 2 years or three years, just at least start the planning and preparation process, and then I think you would decrease a lot of the stress of the transition.
Yeah, I think it's required by law now. It's supposed to be 2 years or something like that. But yeah, I learned as a young staff sergeant. I remember I was over in Germany and I was getting ready to deploy to Grafenwehr or do something like that, and a couple of schools came up, and the commander says, "Hey, Sergeant Tilley, we'll just pull the guys out of school. We'll send them next time." And I said, "No, sir, send them it now, because they may not get that school later. And I'll go shorthanded. We'll do what we got to do." So it's important to, taking care of people is making sure they're prepared to get out of the service. Now, here's some follow-up for both of you. General, we'll start with you. Are you working with DOD and various service installation to help fill the gaps that, from TAPS? Are there programs that they have in TAPS?
We absolutely are trying to. We got great support from all sides. Honestly, not as much as I would like, but we're always pushing.
Yeah.
We're on installations in a number of places where folks get access to our program. We got partnership with DOL in terms of connecting them to career opportunities and to the Navigator program where it makes sense for them. The VA is a great partner with us in terms of providing not only healthcare, but also providing a network of individuals across the country where if one of our enrollees encounters a problem getting services or something, they've got a dedicated one-stop shop to work with this VA employee to help navigate that. And as you know, it always helps having somebody inside the wire rather than out. Right? But I go back to one thing you said, Sergeant, just a point. I do this in part because I was culpable of being part of the problem.
Yeah.
And it's not until
I'm sure I was too.
Yeah, we all were, right?
Yeah.
It's not until you get out and you look back and you say, you know what? I probably didn't do what I should have done. Part of it is because all the folks making decisions haven't transitioned themselves, right? So it's the blind leading the blind. And part of it is the incentive structure. I use this example all the time. It gets a laugh, but it's unfortunately true. If you are an E5 and you lose a compass, or you are a brigade commander and the next 10 folks that leave your formation are homeless, which one do you think is going to face the worst repercussions?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. You just made me think of something. When I was checking these classes out for TAPS, I realized that the people they hired to give the TAPS classes are retirees that just got out of the Army and they put them right in there. And they haven't really processed out. I mean, they retired, but they moved right in that job. I've always thought they should take somebody that's been out of the military for a couple of years, been out in the civilian market, and then let them give classes on TAPS. I think it'd have certainly a different perspective on that, I think, a little bit. So, hey, Colonel, you want to add anything to that what the gentleman just saying about?
Well, I mean, there's really not much more to add. I think General Eastman covered a lot of the key things. One thing I would like to add, though, is the challenge I see, and I think you just hit on a really important point, is if you have not gone through the transition process, you're not able to adequately motivate and mentor someone through the process. The other challenge is, and look, I was guilty, just like you say the two of you were. I was focused on my USR, right? My unit status, monthly unit status reporting. Am I meeting the operational metrics? Am I meeting the maintenance metrics? So I don't want to hit too hard on on current commanders and be too I don't want to sound negative against them, but they have operational focus and requirements that they feel they have to meet because that affects their unit's performance. It affects their personal performance on their NCOER or OER, right? And and because I don't know about the struggles of going through a transition, I don't realize how important it is to make time and to motivate folks to go through the proper transition planning and preparation. I think if we start educating, and I assume that's happening now, if we can do it better, just like we do with whether it's sexual harassment or other, gender discrimination, whatever it might be, if we start educating some of the leadership, NCO and officer leadership, on the struggles and stressors that not even just a service member, but the family goes through, maybe that opens them up to being more motivated to properly because I don't think they don't want to take care of their people. They just don't know that this is an issue until it's an issue, right? And they're not held accountable for that, right? I was held accountable to my USR stats. I was not held accountable to preparing someone for transitioning out of the military. But I think, like you said earlier, if you're truly a caring leader, you may have a high performer and they want to do something, whether it's going to maybe they want to change their MOS. Maybe they want to go to a certain school that may cause you to lose them as a member of your organization. Great leaders will support that. I think but you have to be a caring leader. Part of the caring process is understanding the stressors of a transition and helping someone best prepare and plan for that so they have the best outcomes.
Well, I think in the military, you have tunnel vision. I mean, you're looking at your mission. You know exactly what you got to do. You're focused on that job. Everything else is off to the side. So I fully understand that. I mean, let's be honest about one thing. When you raised that hand, you said, I'll protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. That meant that you'd either take a life or give your life in defense. So there's no second best in our profession. And I understand why. And so that's why there's guys like us that are out there trying to do all we can to sort of educate them a little bit and try to help them out as much as you can. But we're still going to have snafus. But I think probably you'll agree with this. I think we're getting better and better and better and better. So, all you can do is just keep doing all you can for as long as you can. That's for sure. I want to talk about your role in Face to Fight as a coalition member and the work that you're doing to support their mission. But there's always a but with everything. But stay right there. But we need to take another quick break. So don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. Now, here's a word from one more of the organizations that help make this show possible.
You're watching Your Next Mission video podcast, brought to you in part by Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Dental, Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Vision.
Part of transitioning out is that dental and vision insurance breaks off from your medical insurance.
Vision and dental is very important to be able to enjoy your retirement.
Blue Cross Blue Shield makes the transition so much easier.
Now back to your host, the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army, Jack L. Tilley.
Welcome back. We're blessed to be here today with Mike Eastman, Executive Director of Onward Ops and a Brigadier General, United States Army retired, and Howie Cohen, Principal Howie Cohen Associates, Board Member on Outward Ops and a Colonel, United States Army retired. Remember, this is your show. We know there's so many issues that directly affect you, and we want to address each and every one of them. So please, as I said so many times, reach out to me. Tell me what topics you'd like us to cover. You can leave me a message at 844-424-1134 or send me an email at smatilley@yournextmission.org. And guess what? I'll reach back out to you. General, you spoke about the mechanism you have in place that identifies the risk of maybe somebody, about somebody maybe taking their life. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So we're proud members of the Face to Fight Coalition. And, I start by saying our mission in broad terms is let's make everyone successful in transition. We know it's hard. Let's set them up for success. But when you look at that and you peel that back, there's 2 or 3% that we're going to lose to suicide if things don't change in that first year. And so when I said it wasn't rocket science, maybe it's a little bit of rocket science. We got a great partnership with Harvard. We got a great partnership with the DoD STARS program and with Google. We brought all those great capabilities together. We went through a couple million files of military records, through service and post-service. The culmination of that work was we were able to boil it down to 17 questions that we ask folks when they enroll with us. And then through the magic of machine learning and computing, we are able to come down to a pretty solid prediction of how much someone is going to struggle when they leave the service. How likely are they to have suicide ideation? And we're soon adding homelessness and food insecurity to that mix. Why do we do that? And the first point is to save lives. We're at 204 imminently suicidal service members that we were able to refer them to care that day. No cost to them. And I count that as 204 lives saved because these folks were in a very dark place. But more importantly, we have a scarce resource here. Behavioral health is a scarce resource, and we can't spread it across everybody. We're far better served to pinpoint who needs the help and get them connected to mental health through a system that we know works, rather than kind of spread it so thin that not everyone is getting the adequate, and many of them don't even need it. But the folks that need it ought to get it, and I think we have a process in place to identify who those are and kind of triage their levels of risk.
Yeah, I think one of the problems, I'm going to ask the Colonel here in a second, but one of the problems you have is all of us were taught to sort of keep everything to yourself. Don't talk about it because it affects your promotions and everything else. So whatever issue you have, you keep it yourself. And you're taught to do that at a very young age in the military. And so when you get out of the service, most people don't want to open up. They don't want to tell them what their problems are. They're not going to talk about it. So I really think, and I could be wrong, I think the key to success in a lot of this stuff is just talk about it. Talk about how you feel. Even if somebody don't want to listen, tell them, just talk about your issues and stuff. And I guess I probably always talked a little bit too much, but I've always been very open about how I feel. I don't know if I told you this or not. I was overran when I was in Vietnam, 20 wounded and 7 killed. And I know I said this at the beginning, but I had anger issues about 4 to 5 years, and it didn't take much to set me off. And nobody really, at the time now, nobody really helped me get through those issues. And so I just fast forward here a little bit. I could see some of the soldiers coming out of the war, coming out of the Army, having the same kind of issues and not fitting in. That's why I'm sure you guys know this. That's why we have a lot of veterans that are incarcerated. The last number I got was about 200,000 at the federal, state, and local levels. So it's a struggle for all of us. But again, like you're doing right now with Face the Fight Coalition, is do all we can as a collective group to sort of change the lives of people. Colonel, what are some of the reasons transitioning service members struggle on post-service? And I mentioned one. Is there any other reasons that you can give us?
Well, I think the biggest reason is they don't allot themselves enough time to properly plan, prepare, and execute their transition. I think that is that could be the single, other than having whether it's behavioral or mental health issues. I think that could be or other things. But I think that is probably the biggest problem we see in the transition community are folks not taking enough time to properly plan, prepare for, and then execute their transition. And again, we mentioned this several times throughout this discussion. At least start a year out to be effective, preferably 2 to 3 years out. But by not giving yourself enough time to understand the challenges of what the transition process will take you through, I think that's the biggest challenge that transitioning service members go through.
Yeah, but I guess the real question for all of us: how do we break the chain? How do we change that, Joe? How do we change that process? How do we, I don't know. How do we do? Do we need to do something different?
Well, I'm going to step back real quick to something that you said earlier, and then I'll get to that one.
Sure.
You're right. Our culture, all of our collective culture, is not to talk about it. Bottle it up. Don't ask for help. Don't show weakness. And I think 2 things come out of that. One, It turns out if you ask someone very direct, you may be uncomfortable, but if you ask them directly, hey, are you thinking about hurting yourself? A lot of folks will be quite honest with you, and they say yes. And it shocked me. You never would have been able to tell me that 200 plus young people would have said to me, Mike, actually, I tried last month, and I'm going to try next month. But no one's ever asked me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing. It's uncomfortable, but hey, we're all grown-ups. Ask the direct question, you'll get a direct answer in many cases. And the other thing we learned is there are questions we can ask that aren't uncomfortable, but they are predictors of someone struggling, such as, did you have problems with truancy when you were in high school? It turns out if you say yes to that, that is statistically significant for you're going to have some struggles after transition. And that's something we found by looking through the data. So I think there are ways we can go about this to get better. Now, how do we break this chain, though? I think it's upstream. Upstream is no different than IEDs. Get upstream, give folks the information, assess what they need, and help them to connect to it. That's really what we exist to do. We are not service providers. There are 45,000 VSOs in this country that do a phenomenal job providing services. I don't want to be 45,001. What I do want to be is the organization that knows what new veterans need and can help connect them to the best person that can provide it in their community. I think if we do that, we reduce some of the clutter and confusion, and we get ahead of this problem.
Yeah, I'm going to add one more thing too. They got to trust you. If they trust you, this is really, it makes me feel good. After, I've been out of the Army over 20 years, I still get emails from people monthly that say, hey, Sergeant Major, would you talk? Can I give you a call? They have to trust and know that you care. And it's all in how you communicate with that individual. Whether or not you're going to let them talk or not talk or, whatever, but you got to be a good communicator and a good listener. I think the listening is probably one of the most important things. Listen to their stories, listen to the issues, let them know exactly, how they feel, how you feel about them. And I asked on this show, and at the end of this, on all the social media stuff I put out, on the 12th of each month, call a veteran, call somebody I hadn't talked to for a while, because there's people out there that are struggling that nobody talks to. And if you reach out to somebody, I had a couple of friends that one was a senior in SEAL that took his life here probably 2 years ago. And to this day, I've thought, man, if he's a good friend, if I'd have called him, could I change anything? I don't know. But that's the kind of things we need to do. We need to do all we can to reach out and listen and communicate and say, man, I'm here for you if you need anything. So anyway, hey, this has been a great discussion. And I certainly appreciate all that you're doing. If I can ever help you, please let me know, because I certainly will. Any final thoughts, anything that you may have missed or want to reemphasize in general? We'll start with you.
I would just say that, what we do doesn't cost people anything. And so I think you're really helping us, Sergeant Major, by getting the word out. We'd love to have 200,000 enroll in our program a year. And they're not all going to need a tremendous amount of help. But the ones that do, we want to give it to them. But the other thing I would ask is, as you stated earlier, we're in a great country filled with veterans that are looking for a way to continue to serve, continue to get back, and continue to reconnect with that tribe that they had when they were in the military. Becoming a sponsor with us is a way to do that, and I would highly encourage them to do it. We take care of the training. We're not asking folks to do anything clinical. We're asking folks that have maybe struggled themselves to share what they learned and walk this journey with our newest veterans so that they can, reach the absolutely phenomenal potential each one of them brings into civilian life.
Yeah, I should have asked you, is there a website or a number that they can if they want to reach out to you? Have a website and a phone number, sir?
Yeah, we're at onwardops.org. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Onwardops.org, and all the contact info, email, phone, everything else is on that site. So if folks want to go check us out there, that would be awesome.
All right, thanks, sir. Hey, Colonel, how about yourself? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, in addition to the things that General Eastman just described, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, I think one thing that we could do differently and better, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but if we start educating company commanders, battalion commanders, brigade commanders, you know, and soldiers, sailors, airmen, marine about what to expect in the transition process when you make the decision to get out if you don't retire. If we start educating folks, you know, in the chains of and to include the NCO leadership, that what the challenges that a service member goes through, what a family goes through in a transition process, maybe that will kind of spark a change in behavior of the commanders, first sergeants, and the NCO and officer leadership above that, to maybe be a little bit more supportive and be more proactive in helping their service members, you know, plan, prepare, and execute their transition. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I think that could make a difference.
Yeah, I think that I said it before. I think we ought to roll some of this stuff into our educational system, into officers and non-commissioned officers, because we just don't talk about it, or have an online program or something like that. But we need to do a little bit more. But I think we're doing it, and we're getting better and better. I know that too. Hey, look, thanks for coming on the show. This has been a great discussion, and thank you for what you're doing. And if we can ever help in any way, certainly reach out to us. We'd love to try to help you as much as we can. That's for sure.
Thanks so much for having us, Sergeant Major. Just really enjoyed the opportunity.
I did too.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Major.
All right. Don't forget, when you come to Tampa, hit the golf ball or something. All right. Thanks again to Brigadier General Retired Mike Eastman and Colonel Retired Howie Cohen for being with us. You can see that they care. They want to make a difference in the lives of all of us. I'm Jack Tilley, 12th Sergeant Major of the Army, and you've been enjoying Your Next Mission video podcast, and thank you for joining us. Log on to our website at yournextmission.org and leave me a review. I always say that because if it's something you want us to do, tell me what it is. Leave us a good or a bad review. I don't care, but talk to us. While you're there, you can visit our nonprofit and corporate partners who have jobs and services available that can assist you in your transition from the military. And check out our job board in partnership with Recruit Military and Upline, where you can create your own personal profile that will match you with just the right job in real time. You can follow me on my personal social media pages, Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. I always live this live on Rumble. And if you like what we're doing with Your Next Mission, please click on that subscribe button below. And don't forget to click on the bell to receive notifications of all of our upcoming video podcasts. Remember, we want to hear from you. Please leave me a message at 844-424-1134. Send me an email at SMA Tilley at yournextmission.org. Thanks again to Brigadier General Retired Eastman and Colonel Retired Cohen for joining us today. This is a great discussion about transitioning. It's talking about the struggles that we go through. It's talking about preparation, that 2 years out that you ought to start. But the biggest thing about all of this, and we're talking about, is you're not alone. There's so many of us out there that want to help you, that want to assist you. You're not alone. There's so many general officers and non-commissioned officers and colonels and privates, all of us. We're all part of the family. I say it all the time, we're all part of the family. I'm just not going to give you any money, but I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you if you need help. So reach out to us. If you're struggling, reach out to us, because I certainly, till the day I die, will do all I can to assist you in any way that I can. So thanks for watching, and thanks to New Mind Studios, and of course, our sponsors, Navy Federal Credit Union, Purdue Global, USAA, Blue Cross Blue Shield, FEP Dental, Blue Cross Blue Shield, FEP Vision. We appreciate all you do for our military. And as always, see you on the high ground. Hooah!
You've been listening to Your Next Mission, brought to you by the American Freedom Foundation. Learn more by visiting yournextmission.org.